Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us for our Tuesday politics chat. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square, and joining me, as always, is Edwin Eisendrath. He writes the It's the Democracy Stupid Substack, which you should definitely subscribe to. And that will also be the name of his upcoming show here on Lincoln Square that will be starting next week. So you'll definitely want to check that out. That will be on Thursday. But Edwin has a long career as a former Chicago alderman, the CEO of the Chicago Sun-Times, and he currently hosts a radio show on Heartland Signal in Chicago, but you can get it everywhere. So thanks again for joining me.
Thanks, Susan. I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited to join you in Lincoln Square and launch a new show with you.
We're very excited about it too.
Yeah.
Um, Well, I thought we would probably just start with Trump's meeting with Zelensky in the Oval Office, and he came with friends this time after being berated by both JD Vance and Trump back in February. But 7 European leaders decided that it was important enough to make the trip after Trump had literally rolled out the red carpet for Putin in Alaska on Friday, where he did not secure a ceasefire as he had promised. So, what is your take on what went on yesterday and what we're looking at in terms of the Russian-Ukraine war?
Yeah. Yesterday, we saw the kind of intervention that a family has when they have a wayward kid. Um, uh, most of the major European leaders were in absolute panic, alarmed at the unacceptable, cowardly performance of Donald Trump in Alaska. Just shameful performance of Donald Trump in Alaska, where I don't know what he went in there. Remember, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, he was repositioning nuclear subs, right?
Right,
Because he wanted a ceasefire. And then he was like, we won't talk without a ceasefire. And then he sees Putin and they get into his car together and he comes out of his car and he says, what's a ceasefire? We don't need a
right,
ceasefire. What's the Donbass? Oh, that's historically part of Russia. He just
right,
completely gave away the store. And Europe, which has been invaded by Russia, military invasion by Russia into Europe, they were in a panic. They dropped all their plans. These are major leaders of countries dropping their
right.
plans and coming here on a minute's notice to say, "Hey, wait a minute." And then we got a sense of Donald Trump's mental unfitness for the job, Susan. Flipper. Like, which side is he on? Right?
Right.
So he flips back and says, well, maybe it's up to you guys whether there's going to be a peace. But in the middle of the meeting, he calls a halt and goes in the other room and calls Putin to get advice.
For 40 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, the man is unhinged and dangerous, and he is not on our side. He wants to be on the side of the autocrats. He wants to be on Putin's side, and America's not on that side. So we are on one side of a very important war to preserve freedom in Europe, and Donald Trump's on the wrong side. And
Right.
that's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, the look on Putin's face when he emerged, from that meeting, the smirk that he had when he was riding in the limo with Trump. I mean, that just said it all as far as who was in control. And
Absolutely. And it's
and
not
that's
Donald Trump and it's not the
N
United States,
no.
right?
And if Donald Trump were stronger, he would just come out fully for Russia, but he knows that he will take a hit in popularity. He's not strong enough to do that, so he vacillates, but it's clear where his allegiance is. He has no sympathy for the Ukrainian people and what they've been through, for the families who have lost their children that have been taken from them, for these horrendous, bombings of apartment buildings. That's not his concern. His concern is, oh, Putin, you grabbed some oceanfront property. That's really valuable. I admire that.
Yeah, his concern isn't democracy in Europe.
No,
His concern,
absolutely not.
right? His concern isn't borders. His concern isn't the post-war order that the United States created and has brought about more prosperity and more peace than any time in the history of the world. He's not concerned with any of that. He is not a serious man, and he's a dangerous flip-flopper who's clearly not mentally up to a couple-hour meeting. I mean, right?
No,
They couldn't even manage to get through dinner with Putin. They had to call it off early because they were afraid of what else he'd give away.
absolutely. I mean, Putin could have walked away with Alaska. It's kind of a miracle that he didn't.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't.
Um,
You don't know what he actually Putin what
right,
Trump told him. I mean, whatever.
right.
Yeah, terrible. And he listened to Putin, told him what he wanted to hear. Oh, you won the last election. You were
Yes.
cheated. So you know what? Putin's giving him advice on democracies. Let's not have mail-in ballots because Putin says
Right.
Putin, this expert on free and fair elections, right? World-renowned expert on democracy, Vladimir Putin, tells him, "Oh,
Yes.
you shouldn't have mail-in ballots." And sure enough, he's going to lead a charge against mail-in ballots. It is absurd. We should have zero tolerance for it. And I have no patience with people on first off on his side, but on our side who meet him with half measures.
Hmm.
He is outrageous in every way, and this notion that mail-in ballots are fraudulent is a lie. We know this. We shouldn't put up with it. We should say not only is it a lie, but the fact that Vladimir Putin thinks it doesn't work, it should double down on the fact that all it is a way of letting Americans vote. That's the
Right.
thing you're most afraid of. That's why you're telling Texas to gerrymander. You know you're unpopular. You know what you want to do is antithetical to the interests of the American people, and you don't care and you don't want to hear from us.
Putin played Trump like the mark that he is with that comments about the 2020 election. He knows that that is Trump's obsession. And, that's how, you get to Donald Trump is to flatter him and to tell him, yes, you won that election. Yes, you were cheated. I mean, it's really textbook out of, some like amateurish spy novel. And then, what does Trump do? He's got the tweet. I'm going to issue an executive order to get rid of mail-in ballots and voting machines, which the president doesn't have that power. That power ultimately lies with Congress, but elections, as we know, are administered at the local level. Donald Trump doesn't administer your election in your precinct. That's your local clerk. The state has a lot more to do with voting laws and procedures than the federal government does, and that's by design. And so once again, we see Trump just like, his takeover of DC. We're a long way away from getting the government out of our business. Trump wants to be in every facet of your life. You can't walk down to the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. without, feeling like you're in a war zone not because crime is bad there. It's not. It's because he knows that that's where people will be taking all of the pictures and he'll get his propaganda out there about his supposed strength.
Yeah, well, I this also should be a place where we have no tolerance for what he wants to do. The militarization of American streets is a non-starter, non-starter, and must remain a non-starter. And anybody who says, "Oh, well, there really is a crime problem," stop it. This isn't about a crime problem.
No,
We crime has been going down because we use the American Recovery Act funds to address some of the complex social for violent crime, social problems that plague our society, and that includes training police in new and effective strategies and community engagement, and we're bringing violence down. If we want to continue to bring violence down, there are things we can do, but it's
mm,
not militarizing American streets. So that it's a different conversation, and anybody who confuses the two just because Donald Trump says this is about crime is a fool. Once again,
no. And
falling into his rhetoric. It is
it's a
not
bad
about
faith
crime.
argument.
It's absolutely right. And the idea that today 6 states have agreed to send their troops. One of them, South Carolina, is about to get hit with a hurricane.
Right.
They should keep their own troops in their own state. But Ohio, uh, Tennessee, South Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana, and West Virginia, don't you think for a second we are not going to remember that you thought it was a good idea to militarize the streets of a city, by the way, a city that is safer than cities in your own states?
Right. I mean, West Virginia has a higher crime rate, overall, than a lot of states do. I mean, they're not keeping their troops to go patrol Charleston or any of their cities. I mean, they're all on board with Trump's authoritarian vision and giving him a hand. And I think it's very notable that Ohio was one of those states because Mike DeWine, the governor, is still known as a moderate, and he has, distanced himself from Trump strategically sometimes. But the fact that he's signing up for this says a whole lot. And I would imagine, with them having a Senate seat that's not considered to be one of the more competitive, but with Sherrod Brown running again, it certainly will be, all eyes will be on it. That it's issues like this where Republicans, even like Mike DeWine, are willing to go along with Donald Trump's authoritarianism that will be a major issue in this election.
You stay
Um,
with Ohio for 1 second. Yeah,
yeah,
you're absolutely right about their Senate race, but they also now finally have a contested governor's race. And they have a woman
yes,
running for doctor running for governor who helped them through COVID, who is doing
any
very well.
action.
Yep. And so, there's hope even in Ohio. And Ohio, I always talk about Ohio as the state democracy forgot. I mean,
Yeah,
they are gerrymandered terribly, and they are filled with corruption scandals because of it. First Energy, one of the biggest corruption scandals
right.
ever. I mean, the poor residents of Ohio, Susan, are paying extra utility bills in order to keep a coal plant open in Indiana.
It's
It's
insane, and the
insane.
gerrymandering that has been done there, I mean, in a lot of ways, Ohio isn't that different from a lot of the Midwest states, like Illinois and Michigan, where we both live. One of the main differences, though, is how strong the gerrymandering has been there so that it has not been a competitive state for years, but it was a state that Obama won twice, and that's
Yes.
not that long ago.
Well, and look, Michigan was gerrymandered, and you beat the gerrymander. You got fair maps in Michigan. Wisconsin, worst gerrymander in the country. It took us 10 years of hard work. We beat the gerrymander. And, this year we will finally have state Senate elections and things on that fair map, and we'll start to see those changes there. Um, uh, Ohio is the last, to fall. We have to now turn all our attention there and break that gerrymandered set of maps there for the benefit of the people of Ohio so that when they vote, it's meaningful.
Right. And they did vote to have fairer maps, and that was circumvented by the Republican Supreme Court.
They well, even when the Republican Supreme Court in the state said, "Yes, you have to have fair maps," the legislature ran out the clock.
Right. And
They
it
ran out the
wasn't
clock.
enforced.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
I mean, they've used every trick in the book, and that's what we're seeing with the playbook with Trump, with what he's trying to do by pressuring first Texas and other states like Ohio, like Florida, red states, so that he can squeeze out a few more Republican seats and maybe save Republicans from a bloodbath in 2026. And I think it's notable that, in California with Governor Gavin Newsom, he said enough is enough. He's trolling Trump with the same memes, the same tweets that he does, which does seem to be driving some people nuts. I saw Dana Perino on Fox News saying this is just undignified, which,
Wait a minute. I think we get my violin. It's in the other room.
right. Undignified. Imagine like a president tweeting like
Oh, I'm
that.
shocked.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of people are responding who are not like huge fans of Gavin Newsom. They
Mhm.
they did not like him buddying up to Trump at the beginning of the term. They think he's, slick and maybe doesn't stand for very much, but he's picked his moment. And right now, as far as, our readers go and in talking with Democrats, they really like his fight. It's working.
Look, everybody's got to fight in all the ways we can, and he's doing it. I mean, I am appalled that we all have to go and gerrymander, right? I mean, it's a terrible thing to do. It is
Yep.
absolutely antithetical to democracy. But here's the thing. I wish Gavin Newsom would actually say this. You know what? I am disenfranchised. And California gave more Republican votes to Donald Trump than any state but Texas.
Right.
And I think he has to say to those Republicans in his state, I am disenfranchising you. Your voice doesn't count, counts for nothing. if you're worried about that, call Texas. Call
Mhm.
Texas. Call Donald Trump because he's the one who says voters don't matter. And in order to save the democracy, guess what? Your votes don't matter. That's the way we are. It shouldn't be this way. Call Texas.
Right.
Call Donald Trump. They do not believe in democracy. They have declared, without shooting guns, although they've sent their guns to DC, they've declared war on democracy. And we have to save it. And we will
Right.
save it. And that, I mean, it's a little bit, I hate this. It's like Lincoln stopping habeas corpus during part of the Civil War.
Right.
Uh, but that's where we are. It's that serious.
Yes. And, what authoritarians like Donald Trump always count on is the weakness of liberals and liberal institutions. That's why he tries to push things as far as he can. And if there are two things that wannabe dictators hate. They hate being mocked, which is why I think that, the social media game that,
Laughing at
Newsom
them
has
is
played.
always good. Yep.
There you go. And it, gives the rest of us a little, bit of enjoyment because, a lot of this stuff is pretty hard to deal with on a daily basis. But, he also hates being questioned, and he hates people who push back. As you can see, with what's been going on with Ukraine and Russia, he flip-flops based on who's applying pressure. And he counts on the fact that Democrats will just fold. But, when you see Democrats standing up demanding the Epstein files, what happened? Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, fled. He
He
shut
ran
down
away.
Congress. Yeah,
Ran
they
away.
can't deal with the pushback.
Mm.
And, I think there's a lesson for us.
Well, we've got it. We're going to fight hard. We do. We don't have to be cruel. That's not strength. We don't have to be thugs. That's not strength. We can be firm. What they're doing in DC is a non-starter. We'll call it that. Eventually we will stop them, and we will remember this, and they will pay a price for it. Um, I've told you this. I think Mar-a-Lago should be the Museum of American Fascism and the next Smithsonian Museum. I mean, we'll turn those symbols of theirs into beacons of hope when we win. But we have to be firm, and we have to make them pay a price. But that doesn't mean cruelty. It doesn't mean we throw out the democracy to do it. We can do this with the tools we have. We have to strengthen them. And let's just be clear. One of those things we have to strengthen is our wayward Supreme Court.
Mhm.
And that just um, we need to pass the John Lewis laws and the laws
For voting
that
rights.
voting rights and get money out of dark money out of politics. But there's Supreme Court reform on offer too, and we have to be tough enough to do it.
Yeah.
And I
To
think
to
we are. I think
expand the
we've learned.
court.
Well, I don't know that we have to expand it, but there are things. There are lots of really good ideas out there. Expansion is one. It's not the most popular, but you
Right.
can. There's an exceptions clause in the Constitution. There are all kinds of things we can use. We could say people have been there a certain amount of time or go on senior status, and they can only hear certain kinds of cases.
Yeah, like in
Right.
Michigan, you cannot run again as a judge when you are over the age of 70.
Yeah. So there are all kinds of things we could do that would restore jurisprudence to the court. And let's be clear about this. Strength does not mean that if you and I were told we could pick 9 justices today, we would pick 9 left-leaning Alitos. That's not what we would do. We would pick people who believe in the rule of law and believe in jurisprudence. Sometimes we'll make decisions that we don't like, but they'll do it based on law. They'll do it based on facts. They won't be using the court for partisan purposes, which is what this crowd is doing.
Yeah. And one of the things that I really do like about Gavin Newsom's proposal for redistricting is that it's temporary. For it, he
Absolutely.
he
And
brings it
contingent
to
on Texas.
Yes. And he brings it to the people, so ultimately it's their decision if they wanna vote on it,
Mhm,
and it's incumbent if they wanna start the nuclear arms race for
mhm.
gerrymandering, then it's a response. And I feel like that is, obviously more than fair because in Texas, you had, a representative who was locked in the chamber last night. They essentially kidnapped her because she refused to succumb to the Republicans. I mean, this is insane.
Well, and
This is going on in America.
and we're the Texans. I mean, Texas likes to say, "Don't mess with Texas." Have you seen the maps in Texas? It's messing with Texas,
Oh, yeah.
right?
They're
It
already gerrymandered.
already they're messing with Texas. I mean,
Right.
they got this one on the border that looks like a snake that goes for miles. You know what? Like, don't mess. I like Texas. I like the people in Texas, and I think if we had fair maps in Texas, you'd have a different government in Texas.
Yes. Absolutely. But there, right now you see that Trump is terrified of facing voters and having his party face voters. I mean, he dropped that quote unquote joke, in the Oval Office about canceling 2020 elections if there's a war. I mean, he says stuff like this all the time. He has merchandise in the Oval Office, which is illegal for his next term, which would take an act of which would take a constitutional amendment to achieve because he's already been elected to two. I mean, he's always pushing these boundaries, and like fascists tend to do, they cloak it with, "Oh, I have plausible deniability. I can say it's just a joke," but it's not. He doesn't want to leave.
And just so we're clear, you're right. He was only elected to 2. He wasn't
Yes.
elected to 3, as he says, you
No.
know, and he's not entitled to 4. He's not entitled to 3. Look, Don, one way or another, at enormous cost to America, we will be done with Donald Trump, right? And JD Vance is not commanding that kind of crazy love from a portion of
No,
America.
he's a weirdo.
But they have taught Americans to hate the rest of us. And,
Yes.
and being strong doesn't mean hating. But when you look at the videos of some of the ICE guys tearing down signs or saying, we're here to force America to be great again because you ruined it. I mean, you know, the, I do not believe that progressives and the left have ruined America. On the contrary, they've expanded voting. We have become far more prosperous. They have attempted to deal with the wealth gap. But, the right in America is strong and dishonest, and they have pushed very hard for a long time to limit the benefits that we all could have.
Yeah. One thing that I'm really struck by with, seeing the troops in the street, first in LA, now in DC, is that I was covering the day in and day out of the COVID pandemic when I, was the editor of a Michigan news outlet here. And all I heard, from Republicans was like this fiction about how if you didn't show up to your local grocery store with a mask, you would have armed masked agents take you down and throw you in jail, which never happened. But now that's the reality under the Trump administration in two of our major cities. And there's
Absolutely right.
zero self awareness of this.
Well, they not care. They want to hate us. That's the only thing they care about. If we do it, it's terrible. If they do it, it's fine. You know, um, think about Dr. Fauci. They wanted to throw Dr. Fauci in jail because somehow he didn't keep us safe, or whatever they think. They make it up, right?
Yeah.
We have RFK demonstrably making America less healthy, right? We have them lying about vaccines, getting
Right.
rid of the experts who can formulate a flu vaccine, and
Defunding scientific
in
research.
every way. We're like, but are we outraged about this? Are we going to be hearing about it? No, not a chance. So when we
But
next,
if the
yeah,
Democrats are in power in 2026, then we can finally get those hearings.
well, yes, and next time we become president and take back the White House and start to restore the country, the moment Jim Jordan picks up a gavel and says, "I'm going to hold a hearing," I hope we remember that he dodged a subpoena for his role in January 6th and
Right.
put him in jail where he belongs.
Right.
Let's refer him to the Justice Department. Let's have the justice that was too long denied for their
Yes.
attack on our country.
Yes. And that is one of the problems, is that it took too long to get justice for January 6th, for Trump's attempt to overturn the election, and for his closest allies to embrace violence toward those ends. We and now even most of the low level people who were arrested for January 6th all got pardons. And
Right.
it's an attempt to erase history, to erase what he did.
Well,
And
and to give him shock troops. You don't
right,
think some of those pardoned people are part of the ICE crowd? You bet
absolutely.
they are. I mean,
Oh, that's why they're wearing masks.
yeah,
That's one of the reasons.
which also should be illegal.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, the idea that I mean, some states have passed laws where it's illegal to wear masks in public
Mm.
after, as a response to COVID, which does not keep anyone safe from disease, but okay. But now it's acceptable for, people who don't even have to prove that they're really law enforcement to wear masks and grab people off the streets.
It's a lawless, dangerous time,
Yes.
because we put the police in charge of the criminals. Pam Bondi is not interested in justice. She's interested in covering the boss's backside. Kash Patel, not interested in investigating criminals.
No.
He's investigating political opponents. We
Right.
this
He
week
has an enemies list.
Yeah, this week, Ed Martin, that charming guy, right? Who he's so bad, even he couldn't get approved by this Congress when he went in front of them. But he's been given the weaponization job in government, and he went to Tish James's house. He went to her house in order to get
The
pictures of
the
him in
Attorney
front of her
General of New
house,
York.
so that he could go to on Fox News and saying, "I was in front of her house, and we're going to get her." This isn't justice. This isn't rule of law. This is thuggery. And by the way, I'm not confused, as I said before. That's not strength. That's
No.
weakness. They can't the strength is the power of the American people, and they wanna break that power. They wanna break the American people. That's why they're putting troops on our streets. That's why they're making healthcare so expensive. That's why they're attacking the press, and they're attacking our universities. They're attacking the social fabric of our country. They want us to hate each other. When we rise above that, we are stronger than any people ever, because we are one great diverse nation. And when we remember that, we are unbeatable. If
Right.
he can make us forget that, maybe he can rule over us. But if we recover it and remember it and we take care of each other, there is no place for MAGA in that world. None.
Right. But that's why it's so important to Trump to try and control what what the quote unquote facts are, what our reality is. That's why he fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner, because they put out accurate job numbers that showed that Trump is damaging the economy. Those are just facts. He
Facts.
wants he wants to put in a Heritage Foundation crony to put out false numbers like this is the Soviet Union with a 5-year plan. This is his strategy, and he knows that this can be effective because during the last election, people were convinced that the economy was terrible, and you know what? The economy has never been fair between the richest and the poorest. We have a huge problem with that,
We do.
but our economy recovered faster than any other Western nation after the pandemic because of things like the Inflation Reduction Act passed by Congress, a Democratic Congress, signed by President Biden, that infused, road projects and medical research and things that do make this country great, clean energy, things that provided jobs and ways to really grow the economy, not just help the people at the top, but help people have more affordable health care, things that create a robust economy for everyone.
Yeah.
But because inflation did rise, it was more expensive to get things at the grocery store. Trump was able to take advantage of people's discontent. And he's doing that with his supposed war on crime now, because even though crime is really at a 30-year low in this country, most people believe it's on the rise. And he's
He's not
taking advantage of that.
We have to push back. This is not a
Yes.
war on crime. He's not attacking crime. We know how to attack crime. That's not
Right.
what he's doing. He's
No.
attacking democracy. They're not the same thing.
No,
So
and we have to
you
be
just
clear
don't
on
let
that
them get away.
message, but that is the way that he has been able to get, I think, surprisingly decent coverage on this, because a lot of the coverage has just been, stenography of, well, Trump says that this is about crime.
Yeah.
And, people don't like crime. It's been very sad to see.
Okay. Well, I'm not listening to a felon tell me about crime. I don't need to do that. He's just,
There are
he's
34 felonies.
right. And others that we didn't get to.
Right.
So, and
Many others.
this his I'll take just an extra minute with one story from the old Soviet Union. There was a requirement. They had to build a canal for their military ships from a lake to the sea, and they were told to keep the bosses happy. Look, dig. You need to dig 200 yards of canal every day because we have the guys are coming for the big opening, and they're coming in a month, and we have to make it to the sea. And they're like, "We can't do we don't we can't make it work." But they said, "You must do this. The boss wants it done." So they did it. They did it. They had the big opening, and they were there on the podium, and the ships started to come, and they got stuck. Why did they get stuck? Because they didn't dig it deep enough. Because they couldn't do it, so they lied. They wanted to make it look good, so they dug it long, but they didn't do any good because they couldn't make it work. This fascist thinking, this please the autocrat at all costs, and the only thought that matters is the fantasy in his head, it's
Mm,
guaranteed to waste our money, our time, our spirit, and to end up with things that are useless show. Useless show. And
right,
that is what he's doing in DC. Bobby Kennedy is doing with our healthcare. All of this stuff, it achieves no real purpose
right,
except to dispirit us and to try and keep them in power and to keep that madman in the White House somehow happy when he's not talking to Putin and getting his orders.
right. Right, and that's why in his budget bill, he wants to keep these dirty coal plants open, even though private companies have been investing in green energy and they're making plenty of money off of it, and it's much better for the planet. But it's just this, commitment to owning the libs at the expense of our country.
Of everything.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and
Well,
everything that we hold dear.
yeah. Well, so he's proudly not my president. He doesn't want to be my president. He wants people like you and me in jail. Okay, you know what? We are one country, and he doesn't get to be the president of a tiny little bit. That's just not how this works. So zero tolerance for that behavior. When we win, we will govern the whole country, and we'll lift all boats.
Yes, and there have to be consequences. The case that was suspended with him hiding national secrets in Mar-a-Lago, where we still don't know the extent of what happened with that. All of the crimes that he and his cronies were never prosecuted for.
Well, how
There
about
has
getting
to be
$4 billion richer in 6 months,
yes,
president of the United States?
there
$4
have to
billion
be
dollars in his
consequences.
family pockets in 6 months, right? The
Right?
Supreme Court can't protect him from everything.
No. No, absolutely not. Well, Edwin, I'm so happy to have you. You are one of the biggest fighters for democracy out there. I'm glad that you're going to be joining us at Lincoln Square for your own show.
Yeah, I am too.
And I'm glad that we're still able to have these talks. So thank you. And make sure to check out Edwin's Substack. It's The Democracy Stupid and his radio show in Chicago. And, if you don't want to miss Edwin, I'll just put in a plug to subscribe to Lincoln Square because we'd love to have you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Susan.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.